Sorry. Welcome. I shut all my mics off. So, welcome to JW World News, and my name is Vern, and I will be your host over the next few minutes here. We'll be talking about the Montana court latest ruling versus the Watchtower. And hello to everyone out there. This is a little bit of a impromptu newscast live for me, and this is very recent news, so I thought I would get it out there to everyone and get your thoughts on this, because we're going to cover a little bit of information here. Now, just to summarize what we're going to be going over here, I just want to look at my notes here. We have the Catholic LDS and other churches. Let me just look here, see if I can get this up on the screen here. So we'll be covering Catholic LDS and other churches defend clergy loophole in child sex abuse reporting. And in this article, and we'll cover it full screen here, but I'll just kind of go through this. It's quite a lengthy article. And I don't know if everyone has seen it, I doubt it, but in this article, it helped me to identify the different levels of loopholes. And this is thanks to the Salt Lake Tribune. You know, I thought this would be a very religious cut on this. It wasn't. It was very unbiased. And this was such a good article. It's quite a lengthy article. I'm going to go over the whole article. But for instance, if we go to Pennsylvania right now, you notice it comes up. It says what's happening in Pennsylvania regarding these loopholes, these clergy loopholes. So it says there at least 40 bills were filed over 20 years in Pennsylvania with the mandatory reporting statute code, and there were lots of chances to amend the law to remove the clergy privilege, but it never happened. It never happened in Pennsylvania. In 2014, Pennsylvania updated its child abuse code and left in the privilege. They left it in 2014. So this is what's happening now today. I believe that Henry, the district attorney, is fighting this and wanting to turn this around. Now on this chart, there's different color codes. So for instance, in Michigan, it says Michigan passed a law in 2002 that added clergy as a mandated reporter, but included the loophole for confessions. So there's all these loopholes for confessions. We're going to be taking a look at Montana and what's happening right now, and how Jehovah's Witnesses are being overturned, and their clergy loophole is not working the way it used to work. So it sounds like a lot of these judges and these district attorneys are coming in and looking in closer on the Jehovah's Witnesses and this clergy privilege, or this clergy loophole that they're hiding behind. So I'm going to go back to the who's watching on the live stream here, and I'm going to say a little bit of a hello to Yupper Upper Yup, Lord Majestic, hello, Wuthane Phoenix and Hopscrafts, we all say hello. So we're going to carry on with this program. I know you guys wanted to know what's happening. Here it is. I'm just going to change my screen here. Just be patient with me. We just set up this news studio, and so that we could cover different things. So we got the YouTube small screen. There we are. So the information that we're getting on the Montana stuff, the very recent stuff, we're getting right off of this Watching the Watchtower. And this is a new creator out here working on our side of the fence. And I'll just put this in big here. So this Watching the Watchtower, they have 6 subscribers and 7 videos out. So I'm assuming that they're PMO and they're working behind the scenes, because there's nothing on the About page. It's a brand new site, July 7th, 2023. So thanks to Marmy, one of our subscribers. She's helped us to find these sites. And what helps a creator to keep creating good videos like this, that helps us as creators, is that we subscribe to them. So I subscribe. I encourage all of you guys out there to subscribe. We need, as creators, we need ones watching the Watchtower and letting us know. And then we'll take this. We're not PMO. We're not afraid to get up and talk and share scriptures and debate things. So, but we do need to find the information. It really helps us greatly. So here's how these guys do it. I'm going to click on this video, and I'm going to turn the so you can hear the desktop audio. So this is all it is. You play the whole video. So it says to download it. It's just like it's a clerk feeding us information. So it's not a video that you guys are going to watch to really get a lot of information out of it, but there's other videos there. But how this video works, that was the end of the video. So how this video works is we go down on the video here, and there's descriptions here. Now it says pinned by the watching the Watchtower. This is how they do it. And so they have the first one is pinned. It just pulls you back to the docket. So clicking on this link downloads the PDF, the court order. So this is the one we want. You see my cursor's on it. I'm going to click on it right now. And there's the court order. Now I'll see if the screen, we'll try to get you the best screen here. We're gonna get rid of it there. And big screen. There. No, or there. I think the best screen was the YouTube big screen. Right here. I think this was the best screen for it, and I'll just make myself a little smaller. I have that technology. There. Now we're going to go over this article together, and this is why you signed in. This is very new, and so I showed you how to get this new stuff. You can go to watching the Watchtower. These guys just watch the Watchtower. Could you imagine looking at the millions of court documents to try to find out? So obviously these guys know how to do some good research. Pull the documents up anyways. Now, it's one thing to get the document, and then it's another thing to understand what's in this document. Well, these documents are written really for us. We can understand them. At least my good wife, she read through it a couple of times. That's really my secret. So she went over this with me. I'm going to do my best to go over this with you. Not everyone wants to do this. So here it is. This is between the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York and Tracy Cacaret and Camellia Mapley. Now, I'm not going to say their last names again. I'm going to refer to them as Tracy and Camellia because I probably didn't get their last names correct anyways. So now, if you're out there, Tracy or Camellia, I'm sorry. But anyways, you guys are doing a great job going right up against the Watchtower, and this is uncovering some really cool stuff. So that's why I wanted to share it with you today, and rather than waiting for another opportunity. So here they are. They went at the Watchtower, and there's a bunch of documents, you see, and this is the documents are out there. Now, how the two ladies and ex-Jehovah's Witnesses got these documents for abuse for their case, when of course everything was supposed to be shredded. But these documents showed up, and the Watchtower isn't denying it or anything that these documents don't exist. In fact, they do exist. But the problem here is the Watchtower is trying to hide behind clergy loopholes. And they're trying to exclude all of the documents like they have been doing in all kinds of states. And we're going to learn more about this after we go through this court document. So let's get right after it. Legal standards, it goes through that. A person withholding subpoena information, blah, blah, blah. We're going to get right into this. It says a member of clergy or priest may not, without the consent of a person making the confession, being examined as to any confession made to the individual in the individual's professional character in the course of discipline enjoined by the church to which the individual belongs. A party asserting clergy penitent privilege has the burden to prove the withheld documents communication contain. Number 1, a confession or other non-potential statements made to a member of the clergy. Number 2, in confidence. Number 3, for the purpose of seeking or receiving religious guidance, admonishment, or advice. And number 4, so long as the cleric was acting in their religious role pursuant to established practices, the subject of the church, Montana, and it lists out this ruling. So I guarantee you none of the Jehovah's Witnesses knows any hell about this stuff. This is clergy penitent privilege. So do the Jehovah's Witness elders know about this? No. It's not in any of the elders' books on how to do this. You see, if the elders were clergy, this would all be in the elders' book, wouldn't it? Wouldn't they have some training on at least being able to follow through on how to perform a clergy class confession? Well, regardless, if you're a Jehovah's Witness elder, regardless of what you think, the Watchtower is calling you clergy. They're putting you in with the Catholic priests, the Mormons, and all the other clergy that's out there. And this is how they're getting out of the abuse. These are two former sisters this is about. And they were abused, and it didn't get handled within the congregation. And they went to the elders, and they went through all the steps, and it got hidden. And then they grew up, and this is what's happening. These kids are growing up, and they're going to the police. And the police are investigating, and now they're finding that Jehovah's Witnesses are destroying records. But some of the records have been retained, like there's copies of records that maybe the victims get. Maybe they have records. Well, the elders can't go into their homes after the fact and destroy those records. So regardless, there's records. The Watchtower is not denying them, nor are the congregations. But now what the Watchtower wants is confession. They want privilege. They want clergy penitent privilege. This is what they want. So the judge says, okay, fair. We'll take a look at them document by document. And the Watchtower says, ooh, document. We want clergy privilege. We want this loophole that we've been getting forever. We want this. And the judge says, no, you're not going to get it. So here's what we're going to look at a few documents. So document 27, and now I forget how many documents there were. There were several documents here in the list. Yeah. It says here, having reviewed the submitted documents, the court grants the plaintiff's motion with respect to documents 27 through to 38 with readdications described in this order, and the court does deny the motion with respect to some of the documents. So we'll take a look at this. It's quite interesting. So document 27, the first one is a letter sent from the Columbia Falls congregation in Columbia Falls, Montana to elders at the Watchtower, New York, in response to a request from the Watchtower, New York. So here we have the congregation in Columbia Falls, and they're receiving letters to a request from New York for information on all known child sex abusers currently or formerly in appointed positions in the congregation. So this kind of blew me away a bit, quite a bit. Former sex child abusers currently or formerly in appointed positions in the congregation, currently or formerly. So that means that the Watchtower allows sex abusers to currently be in positions of oversight in the congregation, just like the Catholic priests. They were covering this up forever, and we're going to touch a little bit on it right at the end of this program. But it's the same thing. The Watchtower knows about this, and they have elders that are sex abusers that could be in front, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, that could be in front of you right now. And what this led me to believe, I went back, and this is waking me up even further. I thought I was awoke, but now my mind is waking up. And I recall going to a book study in one of the last congregations I was in. And this is when the book studies were in the homes. And we'd go into the home, the book study overseer, and there'd be about 15 of us or whatever, families. And the book study overseer had 2 daughters. And these 2 daughters, they were 14 and 13. They would sit on his lap, and he would fondle them right in the book study. Like, he'd grab their legs and kind of move his legs up and down. And they'd sit on his lap like this. And they would hang all over him. And we drove away from the book study one night when it was obvious that this is weird. And my kids brought this up. My teenage kids, my daughter hung out with them. And I was just blinded by this. Well, this is an elder. This is this stuff doesn't happen. He could have been a pedophile. Like, I don't know, but he could have been now my mind is going crazy. It's wondering if this guy's a pedophile right in the book study, because they know about it and they allow it. So this blew me away. So we're going to carry on. So yeah, elders can be an oversight and have a past abuser, child sex abusers, currently or formerly appointed. So they're looking for documents on this. So then it outlines the allegations of sexual misconduct against a congregation member not named in this litigation. So Watchtower New York argues that the letter is privileged because it is confidential communication seeking religious guidance, admonition, or advice, or concerning a third party. So having reviewed the letter, the court finds that the letter is not privileged. First, the letter is not a confession and does not indicate that the information obtained is from a confession. Rather, the letter describes the alleged child molester as denying all accusations, stating that the third party articulated that he did nothing to apologize for it. Second, the letter is not seeking religious guidance or advice. Instead, it merely supplies the information requested by Watchtower New York by their letter. In fact, the elders who drafted the letter state, "We hope this information will be of assistance to you, brothers in New York, assessing this situation," and then offer their assistance as the Watchtower needs. Of course, that's how the congregations work that way. And then it goes on to say, accordingly, the letter is not privileged. This is what this is what's in this court document. Accordingly, the letter is not privileged, and the court orders its production. So since the letter mentions persons not named or implicated in this litigation, the court orders document 27's production with the redaction of those names. So they're just saying, just pull the names out. Pull the names out. Everything in that document we're gonna show in court. So that's a win right there. Document 27. Watchtower loses. Document 28 is a letter sent from Harvest Park congregation, and these are different congregations, right? All over Montana. Of Jehovah's Witnesses in Billings to Watchtower New York in response to Watchtower New York's letter. Again, it outlines the allegations of sexual misconduct against a congregation member not named in this litigation. So it names other people not in this litigation. So Watchtower New York argues that the letter is privileged because it is a confidential communication seeking religious guidance, blah, 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 advice and third party, all that standard clergy penitent privilege stuff. They keep throwing that out. So the judge says nothing in the letter except line 6 is privileged. And she says, like document 27, document 28's introduction paragraph, lines 1 to 7, line 7 state the facts of the accusations without any indication that they were gleaned from a confession. And for any of us JWs, ex-JWs that were in elders meetings, I was in a lot of them, we don't go to meetings to confess. You get called in, you get ordered in, want to see you in the back. Like, what did I do wrong? Like, it's not a confession where I felt I did something wrong. But, there's times when You think a young person, if there's child molestations going on in the house, and they want to maybe talk to another elder, and maybe they get them in the back. I don't know. Is that a confession? Anyways, let's carry on. I'm not a judge. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just reading you guys the documents. So, further, the letter does not ask for religious advice or guidance. It's only stated the purpose to provide the information requested by New York, the governing body, their legal department. So line 6, on the other hand, describes the accused confession and the internal justice action taken in response. Both are privileged and must be redacted along with the names of any person. So yeah, so the court is being reasonable. They're saying, if this is confession or if this person's name, we're going to take certain pieces out. But the court is going to leave everything else in. And this is hopefully what's going to hang the Watchtower. So document 29, you see, the Watchtower is getting all this stuff thrown out of court. And then it was really hampering the legal proceedings for a lot of our brothers and sisters that were victims in these congregations. They're ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, of course, now, but they're suing because they need to sue. This needs to be settled. And so they're champions. These ones that are standing up and going through all these court proceedings and dealing with all this Watchtower jumping through loopholes, they're heroes. Now, document 29 is a letter sent from the Hardin congregation in Hardin, Montana, to the Watchtower New York in response to their letter, because Watchtower New York wants all this information. They want to know how many of the pedophiles are actually acting as elders. That's really what they want to know. So it outlines the allegations of sexual misconduct against Gunnar Hain. Watchtower New York argues that the letter is privileged because it is confidential communication, blah, blah, blah. So they argue the clergy thing. And the court reviewed it in camera in 2021 and found that it contained information from a confession by Hain, so it was privileged. So document 82 at 3-4. However, at the time, the plaintiff did not know that the letter was a corporate report in response to the Watchtower New York letter. So now they argue that they could not brief how the clergy pendant privilege may or may not apply because it was nothing to do with it. These were letters between congregation elders and New York headquarters. So as such, the plaintiffs requested the court review the documents, redact any parts that contain a confession, and the court granted this. So they couldn't even get that document thrown out. So there's another win for our side. Watchtower lost on that one. So having reviewed document 29 in this new context, the court finds the portions of the letter do not contain privileged information and can be produced. And the majority of the letter in its recitation of the facts of the incidents and accusations, though it also contains confessions and descriptions of the congregation's disciplinary actions, accordingly the court orders the letters to be produced with the following redactions: paragraph 1, sentence 2 and 3, paragraph 1, sentence 4, ending at after, paragraph 2, sentence 1, paragraph 2, sentence 5, beginning at the information. You see, the reason I'm showing this is the judge, you could imagine this letter, just little blackouts right here, right here. They're allowing these letters, you see, so the gist of the story is going to be told. Watchtower can't hide. It's all coming out. This is a good part of this. So now document 30 is a letter sent from the third-party congregation to Watchtower. So it's sent from a third-party congregation to Watchtower, New York, in response to their letter. So Watchtower's letter, again, asking for all this information. And it outlines the allegations of sexual misconduct against a congregation member not named in this litigation. So Watchtower New York argues that the letter is privileged because it's a confidential communication seeking religious guidance, admonishment, or advice concerning a third party. So the court finds this letter is privileged because it expressly seeks religious advice on how to proceed with respect to accusations. Accordingly, the court orders document 30 to be withheld. So that one article got withheld, that one document. So document 31 is a letter sent from the third party, again, the whole thing. So the Watchtower argues that it's confidential, clergy. So the court finds this letter is privileged because it's entirely based on information from confessions of accused abusers and seeks religious guidance or advice from the Watchtower New York. Accordingly, the court orders that document 31 be withheld. Document 32 is a letter sent from the Twin Bridge congregation in Twin Bridge, Montana to New York in response to their letter, and it outlines the allegations. And again, Watchtower says it's privileged, it's clergy class. And then the court says document 32 is not privileged because it does not contain information from a confession, nor does it detail any internal judicial process or ask for religious advice. Thus, the court orders the production of document 32. And since third parties not involved in this litigation are named, the court orders their names just to be redacted. Just black them out. So that article wins. You see, so we're getting the point here that the court, if there's a private confession, they're granted that this is the person's privacy. It's kind of like going to a doctor and you're having a confession with your doctor about things. There's stuff that's supposed to be confidential, we hope. And I guess the court is honoring some of this. So the court finds this letter is privileged. It was learned from an internal judicial proceedings in the accused's confession. So they order that 33 to be withheld. So 34, they find it's privileged, and it was guidance during a confession. So 36 is from a third party, and it's Watchtower says argues clergy class. So the court finds this letter privileged because it's entirely based on confession. And so we see how the court's being reasonable. Document 37, again, they argue clergy class, and the court finds the letter contains some privileged information that can be redacted, but otherwise it's unprivileged. The court says paragraphs 1 and 2 are not privileged because they describe facts unrelating to the abuse. So you see, now they have documents with some stuff privileged and some stuff not. So document 38 is a letter from Tom Myers of the Hardin Congregation to Watchtower, New York, generally about the abuse by Martin Sevenson, who is named in this litigation. Watchtower, New York argues it's privileged because it provides religious guidance, blah, blah, blah. You see, obviously it's not privileged because the name's in here. So the court finds document 38 is not privileged, it does not contain information, and blah, blah, blah. So that gets allowed. So the conclusion is, here's the conclusion. It is hereby ordered that the plaintiff, and that's Tracy, the two ex-sisters, these are the ones we're cheering for, Maple's motion to compel production of non-privileged information of the documents withheld is granted with respect to documents, and they name all these documents, with redactions described in the order. And the motion is denied with respects to these other few documents that we showed. So folks, this gives us a rundown of how this stuff works. It's very timely, and we want to give a lot of support to these two sisters, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. I call them sisters because that's what we used to call everyone. But it's just bizarre as to how the Watchtower and how they're handling this stuff. But they want to be clergy. The Watchtower wants to be clergy. So we're going to be looking at this article next. And I'm just going to take a look at my screens here. So here we are. Okay, so I wanted to take a look at the live stream and see if we had any questions on what we just covered. That's one thing that's good about a live stream. I can always go back to the document and pull it up. So my good wife will list out any questions if they come up. So if you guys have questions on the live stream or some of this stuff isn't clear, just ask a question. And it's my good wife that's at the other end, and she'll pin your question. And then I can, of course, see it as well. So there's a lot of new people on. I really appreciate seeing Jay and Blue Rose, Ryan at Cultastic. Nice to see you. Lord Majestic. So Tammy G, hello. And we're going to talk a little later on here too, towards the end of the program, on what we can do as individuals, how we can get involved and help with these things. We're going to look at, our next article is on how these clergy loopholes work and how vast it is all over the U.S. We're going to look at the U.S. particularly. Now in Canada, it's supposed to be mandatory reporting. But I'm even questioning, are they getting away with some clergy loopholes here in Canada? I'm going to be looking into it a little further. I don't think so. But boy, oh boy, in the U.S., it's all over the place. And we're going to look at that next here on JW World News. Okay, so topic and news study. So we're going to look at, I'm going to put on to the big screen here. And we will look at this article here. And this article here is from the Salt Lake Tribune. And the Salt Lake Tribune. I was kind of wondering about this. I'd seen this article before. I used a little bit of this article in one of my other videos several months ago, but it wasn't as hot of a topic. Like right now, if you were to type in, and we're going to do this a little later on in the show if you stick around, we're going to type in Jehovah's Witnesses and child abuse on their website, and we're going to type this in on the internet. We're going to see what the difference is. We're going to type in Catholics and child abuse on the JW website, on their JW.org, and we're going to type this in on just on the website and see what happens. So stick around. But first of all, this is a long article. It's a really good article. It's an eye-opener for me as to the clergy loophole in child sex abuse reporting and how they're doing it and how many people are fighting this and how long this fight has been going on. Now, just excuse me, I got to wet my whistle. Now, in Utah and 32 other states, exempt clergy from laws requiring professionals to report information about alleged child sexual abuse. So it seems like there's been all kinds of laws, and we're going to get into why these laws are allowed to be in place. This article covers it. This article is the Associated Press by Jason Deeren and Michael Resend. If I said your name wrong, I'm sorry. So here we go. It was a frigid Sunday evening at the Catholic Newman Center in Salt Lake City when the priest warned parishioners who had gathered after Mass that their right to private confession was in jeopardy. Sounds like a storybook. The new law would break that sacred bond, the priest said, and directed the parishioners to sign a one-page form letter on their way out. We oppose HB 90. So this is the bill, eh? And it began the letter, stacked next to pre-addressed envelopes. HB 90 is an improper interference of the government into the practice of religion in Utah. So HB 90 is an improper interference of the government into the practice of religion in Utah. So this is what we're getting the priests to sign, right? That this HB 90 is improper, it's an interference of the government into our practice of religion in the state of Utah. So in the following days of February 20th, 2020, Utah's Catholic Diocese, Utah, am I saying Utah right? Utah? Idaho? Utah's Catholic Diocese, which oversees dozens of churches, says it collects some 9,000 signed letters from parishioners and sent them to State Republic Angela Romero, a Democrat who had been working on the bill as part of her campaign against child sexual abuse. So HB 90 targeted Utah's clergy penitent privilege, a law similar to those in many states that exempt clergy of all denominations from the requirement to report child abuse if they learn about the crime in a confessional setting. So Utah's Catholic leaders had mobilized against HB 90, arguing that it threatened the sacred privacy of confessions. More importantly, it met with disapproval from some members in the powerful Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, whose followers comprise the vast majority of the state legislature. Did you know that Mormons are very, very political, and they're always trying to run for, like, if they could be the president, they'd rule the world. Like, Mormons want to rule the world. They believe that they should get into politics and rule the world. Mormons believe that. I had Mormons working for me, so they told me that. They were very clear about that. And they believe, they wouldn't be in their religion if they didn't believe it. But here the Mormons are trying to cover up child abuse within their own church. We're going to see this right from the Salt Lake Tribune. Okay. So here it is. It met with disapproval from some members of the powerful Church of the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, whose followers comprise of state legislators. So they run on state in Parliament. They try to get in there, and some of them are there. So HB 90 was dead on arrival. It was dead. How are you going to get that going if you got Mormons in Parliament? You're not going to get it going. In 33 states, clergy members are exempt from any laws requiring professionals, such as teachers, physicians, psychotherapists, to report information about alleged child sexual abuse to the police or child welfare officials if church deems the information is privileged. So that's, in 33 states, the clergy can get away with it. They can hide it. And they have been hiding it for many, many years, like thousands of years. I think this is a problem that's been going on all over. I think this article covers it, like the Boy Scouts and everywhere. And I think we are living in a time now that everyone's waking up. They're waking up to the control of religion. And religion's just nonsense. Religion's just garbage when it hides this kind of stuff. We're going to talk about this a little further. So this is I'm going to leave this link in this live once it's done. But this chart, you can see all of the states. So you go to the state you're living in. So if you're living in Arizona, where's Arizona? It'll tell you what the ruling is in your state. California, Arizona, right down here. Arizona reporting bills that didn't fix the loophole. They're number 3. You see the color coding here? So the Democrat state Sen. Victoria Steele has sought to close the clergy privilege loophole 3 times since 2020 and has been thwarted in committee each time. So Arizona, they have a loophole because they've been trying and trying. You see, that's why I think it's so important that we get out to Be Free 2023. We got to get to the Parliament. And that's why this protesting, you go right to the White House. And the government has to see that all of these states, they got too many religious people sitting on the state senate, and they're protecting child molesters. We're going to see this in this article, but you guys can go and look at what the ruling is. Like Washington, it's a darker color. It's reporting bills that didn't fix the loophole 5. So it says what's happening in Washington. Washington doesn't list clergy as mandated reporters, but grants clergy penitent privilege, though it's limited to pastoral communications. And there have been numerous tries to add clergy as mandated reporters, and they've all failed in Washington. Now, we all wonder what's going on in Pennsylvania. I read that at least 40 bills were filed over 20 years, and it still isn't done. So I think there's a lot of work to do. And the point of this live is to show that Jehovah's Witnesses are in with the Catholics and the Mormons. It's the same thing. They're the dirty. It's a dirty business, and they're into it. And I thought when I was a Jehovah's Witness is that we were above all of this. But we're going to show you that a little later on the program here. We're going to go to their site. Let's carry on reading this. It's quite interesting. It says this loophole has resulted in an unknown number of predators being allowed to continue abusing children for years, despite having confessed the behavior to religious officials. So they confess to religious officials, but then for years they keep getting abused. In many of these cases, the privilege has been invoked to shield religious groups from civil and criminal liability after the abuse becomes known to civil authorities. So here all of these churches are hiding. They don't want to face up to what it says in the book of Romans. Remember, we covered that in one of our last videos, to be in subjection to governments and authorities in relation to when it comes to crimes, things like crimes, child abuse. And we read all the scriptures pertaining to that too. So it's really, the Bible's really clear on this subject. Excuse me. Now, over the past 2 decades, state lawmakers like Romero have proposed more than 130 bills seeking to create or amend child sex abuse reporting laws, an Associated Press review found. All either targeted the loophole and failed to close it, or amended the mandatory reporting statute without touching the clergy privilege and amid intense opposition from religious groups. So the AP found that the Roman Catholic Church has used its well-funded lobbying infrastructure and deep influence among lawmakers in some states to protect the privilege, and that influential members of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Now here's the Jehovah's Witnesses. Told you they'd show up. Influential members of the Jehovah's Witnesses and Salt Lake City-based LDS Church have also worked in state houses and courts to preserve it in areas where their membership is high. So we have the Catholics, the biggest culprits, been around for decades doing, and they were exposed back in the 90s. When I was at JW, the Catholics were all coming out and it was all being exposed. We're going to look at that in a bit here. Now, the Jehovah's Witnesses are in with the Catholics and the Mormons. Now, let's carry on and see how what's going on. Salt Lake Tribune, Angela Romero. This is her. She's the one that's making a big stand, and she works for the state capital. And during a rally to gain support for removing clergy exemption from mandatory reporting in cases of abuse and neglect. So speaks on the steps of the state's capital during a rally to gain support for removing the clergy exemption. Yeah, so the clergy are exempt from reporting and they want to remove it. And I agree, we all agree that all of this should be removed, this clergy exemption. To hide pedophilia? Yes. So in Maryland, a successful campaign to defeat a proposal that would have closed the clergy penitent loophole was led by a Catholic cardinal who would later be defrocked for sexually abusing children in adult seminaries. So in Maryland, the campaign to defeat would have been closed by the clergy penitent loophole was led by the Catholic cardinal. So let's carry on. In other states such as California, Mississippi, and New Mexico, public and backroom oppositions to the bills aimed at closing the loophole from the Catholic and LDS churches successfully derailed legislation from reform efforts. So the churches are deframing and derailing everybody from getting this in. That's what's happening. The churches have a lot of power, a lot of money, and they're in on Parliament. So they believe they're on, here it states it right here in this article. Listen to this. It says, they being these churches, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, and Catholics, they believe they're on a divine mission that justifies keeping the name and the reputation of their institution pristine, said David Finkiller, director of the Crimes Against Children Research Center at the University of New Hampshire, speaking of several religious groups, so that the leadership has a strong disincentive to involve the authorities, police, or child protection people. So you see, the leaders of all these churches, they want to protect their church, their reputation, and therefore they strongly discourage any of this going to the authorities, the police or the child protection people, which can help the children. But the churches are too concerned about their reputation. I got to ask you this question. What do you think God cares about? The reputation of the church or the children? And if we take a look at James 1 and 27, we know that Jesus was concerned with the orphans and the widows, not the church. In fact, Jesus went into the church and turned over the money tables in the churches of his day. He was an apostate. And I said this in a lot of videos, he was against the religion of his day. Because it was the same as the religions now. It was corrupt. And that's what we're exposing. So Jesus exposed it back in his day. We're exposing it in our day. But you see, we're not doing the work. The work is done by the governments and the authorities, the ones that God put in the position to do this, according to the book of Romans. So they're doing the work. We're just eyewitnesses of it, and we're talking about it here online. So now, here it is. The loophole protects churches from survivors and prosecutors. So last month, an AP investigation found that a Latter-day Saint bishop in Arizona, at the direction of church leaders, failed to report a church member who had confessed that he sexually abused his 5-year-old daughter. So that reminds me of what could have happened here in my book study that I was talking about earlier on in the program. So while the AP found that the rep, Merrill Nelson, a church lawyer and Utah Republican lawmaker, had advised the bishop not to report the abuse to civil authorities because of Arizona's clergy privilege law, according to the documents revealed in the lawsuit. So here you got the lawmaker involved, the Republican, and the church lawyer, and the rep, I guess Merrill Nelson, who's the person that was involved, perhaps, or the church, maybe it's the church leader. So anyways, they're all in this together, the lawmakers, the church leaders, the Republicans, and they want to hide the sexual abuse. They don't want to report it to the civil authorities. So they're all in it together. According to the documents revealed, this is according to, they had advised the bishop not to report it. And this is according to the documents revealed in a lawsuit. So Salt Lake Tribune is doing their work. They're not going to throw this out there as hearsay. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. So that failure to report, this is what happens. So we think of what goes on in the Jehovah's Witness religion, where they put elders back in as elders. They're child abusers. You know, let's say the elder in my book study was a child abuser. I know, another elder told me he quit for 2 years once he found out another elder was a child abuser. That's what he told me. I'd already quit. And this is a few years later. He meets me in a grocery store and tells me that he quit. He had quit for a while. Then he went back. And I said, well, who was the child molester? Well, I'm not going to tell you that. You see, they keep it all quiet because he's still a Jehovah's Witness. They're still trying to protect Jehovah's reputation. And I don't know if this guy's still an elder. But here's what happened in the Mormon church because it allows it to happen. That failure to report allowed the church member, the late Paul Adams, to repeatedly rape his 2 daughters and allegedly abuse one of his 4 sons for many years. It's not fair. It's not fair that the sons, the daughters, they have to live the rest of their lives as abused victims because of this asshole, because of these churches. This is why we're going to talk a little bit more, and we're going to go to the Be Free site. We're going to look at it. We have to get involved. We have, I feel we have to, in one way or another. But if you can, get involved. And I think going to the Parliament, going to the government will help. That's what we're doing here in Canada. We're trying to do it, but we have to do it all over. And that's what happens. If we allow these people and keep them in these positions, they just keep abusing. It has to go to the lawmakers. Many of these people should be serving time. They should be doing prison time. They should be getting psychological training and abuse training. And there should be a public awareness program where the whole congregations know of the known abusers. So if a priest is an abuser, he should be locked up in jail. The Catholic Church was just shipping him to another church so he could abuse more people. So now let's carry on. In response to the case, State Senate Victoria Steele, a Democrat from Tucson, on 3 occasions proposed legislation to close a clergy reporting loophole in Arizona. So Steele told the AP that the key Latter-day Saint lawmakers, including a former Republican state senator and Judiciary Committee chairs, thwarted her efforts before her proposal could even be presented. So here you go again, you got these Latter-day Saint lawmakers, these religious lawmakers. I think religion and politics are 2 separate things. But here you have the Mormons thinking that they're going to rule the world and they're going to push their beliefs of protecting pedophiles upon everyone else, because that's what the Mormons are doing here. So it's difficult for me, she says, to tell this story without talking about the Mormons and their power in the legislators, Steele said. What this boils down to is that the church is being given permission to protect predators and the children are be damned. They're trying with all their might to make sure the bill does not see the light of day. Frickin' Mormons. And the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Catholics. They're all in the bed together. Latter-day Saints and Catholics hold a number of influential positions as leaders and committee chairs in the Arizona legislation, including the House Speaker, and have been known to advance or block legislation in line with the church's priorities and values. There you have it. In one high-profile example, 2 Republican legislators took a stand in 2019, refusing to vote for budget until lawmakers passed a measure allowing past victims of child sexual abuse to sue churches or youth groups that turned a blind eye to the abuse. Legislative business grounds to halt for weeks amid fierce opposition from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Roman Catholic Church, and insurers, along with their allies in the legislature, which finally approved the measure. So their allies is Jehovah's Witnesses. It named that up there a couple paragraphs earlier. So the Adams case is hardly the only example of the privilege being invoked in cases where a clergy member's failure to report led to prolonged abuse. In Montana, for example, a woman who was abused by a member of the Jehovah's Witnesses in the mid-2000s won a $35 million jury verdict against the church for failing to report her abuse. And that's what we're talking about. But in 2020, the state Supreme Court reversed the judgment, ruling that the church leaders were under no obligation to report, citing the state's clergy penitent privilege. So that's how they got out of it. So for all you Jehovah's Witnesses out there that are watching this program and will watch this program, if you're an elder and you're in a place of responsibility, you know that there's child molestations going on. You know that you're hiding them. And you know that Watchtower is telling you to do this. And you know that it's wrong in God's eyes. So the governments here are trying to help the children. You can help the children by leaving the organization and maybe talking to the police and telling about all of the child abuses that have been happening under your oversight. And that might give you a lighter sentence as what's going on in the state of Pennsylvania with the ex-brother Haw. He's doing that. So the privilege can also be used to protect religious organizations from criminal liability. So here you got it. These religious organizations have a get-out-of-jail-free card. In 2013, a former Boise police officer turned himself in for abusing children, something he had reported to 15 members of the LDS Church, none of whom notified authorities. Can you imagine? So prosecutors declined to file charges against the church because of Idaho's clergy penitent privilege law. The LDS Church said that in a written statement to the AP that a member who confesses child sex abuse has come seeking an opportunity to reconcile with God and to seek forgiveness for their actions. That confession is considered sacred and in most states is regarded as protected religious conversation owned by the confessor. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops did not immediately return a request for comment about its campaign against state bills seeking to do away with the clergy penitent privilege. Supporters of the clergy privilege say abolishing it will not make children safer. Some go as far as to say that the ability of abusers to report privately to clergy encourages them to confess and often leads to stopping the abuse. It's considered essential to the exercise of religion to have a priest penitent privilege that will allow people to approach their clergy for the purpose of unburdening themselves, their mind, and their soul, and to seek peace and consolation with God as well as with their fellow beings. And the Utah State Representative Nelson told the AP, without the assurance of secrecy, troubled people will not confide in their clergy. So this is a case. What do you guys think online? Do you think that clergy, it's important to, if someone killed someone, let's say someone went out and committed a murder. So they go to the priest and they say, I committed a murder. So the priest says, well, go and do your rosary beads a whole pile of times and come to do this and do that. And if you're a Jehovah's Witness, what do? If you committed a murder, a crime like that, do they send you to the police? I don't know. Probably. They should, right? Murder is pretty serious. A priest should do that, right, on a murder. But it's a crime, a child crime, children crime. Why wouldn't it be treated the same? That's a question to you guys as the audience. I don't have all the answers, but we'll do more research. Now, Gene Hill, government liaison for Utah's Catholic diocese, who helped organize opposition to Romero's bill, pointed to a single research paper to argue that the laws that targeted privileged confessional conversations in the context of child abuse have not increased reporting in those communities. So there's two sides to these arguments. So when you take away every opportunity for people to get help, Hill said they go underground and the abuse continues. But the authors of the study Hill cited, published in 2014, have cautioned about reaching such conclusions based on their research. So there's really no research to back what this guy is saying, is what this article's saying. So this other guy, a law professor in Michigan, what does he say? He told them that the study was limited, partly because churches often wouldn't give them access to data on clergy reporting. So they can't even do a proper study on these churches because they're keeping everything confidential. And because they have this ability, they're allowed to. And they're allowed to hide crimes, and they're allowed to hide all kinds of stuff. Like even, the Catholic Church, they say that a lot of money that comes into it is mafia. It's cash. It's laundered money. Sometimes they drop bags of money off with the priest. They go into confession and say, I had to kill a bunch of people. And then they leave confession booth with a big bag of dirty money. And what does the priest do with it? There's all kinds of stuff. It's a big world, and there's a lot of darkness going on inside of organized religion. That's why if you're outside of organized religion, I think it's safe. You're on a safe side. Being inside religion is in my opinion, the wrong place to be in the time that we're living. Now, let's carry on. Privilege is not constitutionally required. So efforts to rid state laws of privilege have been successful in only a handful of states, including North Carolina, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, Texas, and West Virginia. Now, records and interviews with lawmakers in the 33 states that still have the privilege show that intense opposition from powerful religious organizations is more often too much to overcome. So the religions are grouping up, and they sit in on Parliament, and it's just too difficult to overturn this clergy privilege that all these religions are hiding behind. So now the former Catholic California state Jerry Hill said that he introduced in 2019 to require clergy members to report suspicion of child sex abuse or neglect by coworkers was killed after opposition from the Catholics and the LDS churches, as well as other religious groups, Jehovah's Witnesses, just not named there. Now, the opposition of the Catholic Church was instrumental in creating a lot of controversy around the bill, a lot of questions related to the religious freedom, Hill said. And the Catholic Church made it clear that it would sue if the bill passed, Hill said. So here you have that damn Catholic Church going to sue the governments just so they can protect pedophiles. I think it's time that the big guy deals with these churches. I think it's just got to be end really quick here. If there is a big guy up there, if that's all real. Anyways, I'm with the governments on this. This has to stop. And the more of us that get outside of religion, we realize that religion, all religion, including Jehovah's Witnesses, is corrupt. It's not a cool place to be. It's not the right place to be, in my opinion. Now, we go on and talk about this. Michael Cassidy, a professor of Catholic-affiliated Boston College Law School and a former state prosecutor. So you see, all of these people have lots of affiliations. The legal people, the law schools. And they said it's unclear how a religious freedom case regarding the clergy privilege would turn out. Why? Well, they go to church. They support the churches. So some supporters believe the privilege is securely rooted in the First Amendment's guarantee of freedom of religion. But Cassidy said there is no firm precedent that says the clergy penitent privilege is constitutionally required. So I think that's what they got to fight this on. So the Supreme Court has never held that, Cassidy said. He has proposed a middle path allowing clergy to maintain the secrecy of confessional, but carve out an exemption for dangerous persons, including child sex abusers. And I agree. Okay, so carve this all out. Confessions are okay, but if there's any crime, any danger, including sex abusers, it has to be reported. So it says here, often legislative efforts to close the clergy loophole run up against lawmakers who are also church members, as well as intimidation from advocacy groups aligned with various religions. And I think of the bitter winner when I think of that. I think bitter winner is half Jehovah's Witness. That's what I think. The way they talk, or someone's paying someone in bitter winner. But these are these groups that are aligned with these religions. So it's a 1-2 punch that has killed many bills quietly before they are even introduced, and has led to the privilege loophole being deemed by child welfare advocates as a poison pill included in the mandatory reporting bills the EP's review has found. So this is poison in our economy, it's poison in our society, and as people we have to advocate and we have to remove this, and we have to understand it. And that's why I'm going through this. In Utah, after religious officials publicly opposed her bill seeking to close the loophole, State Rep. Romero, a lifelong Catholic, received ominous voicemails and emails. Fearing for her staff's safety, she reported some of them to the state law enforcement. It's utterly despicable that you think that this is all right, said one anonymous caller, claiming to represent a group called Young Americans for Liberty. If you care to return my message, if not, I'm going to call you every day until you do. So the blowback also got personal. Devout Catholic members of Romero's own family stopped talking to her, so they disfellowshipped her. And they thought, here's what she said, they thought I was trying to attack the Catholic Church and get rid of confession, one of our sacraments, Romero said. That's how it was presented to them. In 2003, as the Catholic clergy sex abuse scandal swept the nation, a bill seeking to rid Maryland of the privilege in child sex case evoked a strong rebuke from Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, and then the powerful Archbishop of the Diocese of Washington, D.C. If this bill were to pass, I shall instruct all priests in the Archdiocese of Washington who serve in Maryland to ignore it, McCarrick wrote in the Catholic Standard column. And on this issue, I would gladly plead civil disobedience and willingly, if not gladly, go to jail. So this is how these Catholic priests, this is what they're dealing with, these priests. This is how much they want to hide pedophilia. They want to hide crimes. They want to have the right. You see, the Catholic Church, they're the big ones. They want to have the right, the big guys on the block, they want their priests to have the right to decide if it's a crime, if it should be reported. Like, who the hell gives a priest this kind of right? Who gives a Jehovah's Witness this right? Who gives a Mormon this kind of right? Like, this is ridiculous. So if you're getting upset at this, you're not alone. So Virginia updated its mandatory reporting law in 2006. Well, the bill started out with the clergy among those listed as reporters with privilege intact. They would be removed from the final bill, and the privilege, oddly, was left in. The state went on in 2019, told ministers, priests, rabbis, and other religious officials to the list of mandatory reporters of child abuse, but again protected the clergy penitent privilege. Why? State Del Carey Delaney, a Virginia Democrat who sponsored the bill in 2019 that added clergy to the list of mandated reporters, said that including language to close the privilege would have doomed the bill. So you see, she knew that they would cancel it. She wouldn't get anywhere if she got rid of that clergy penitent privilege. She says, we wanted to pass the bill, Delaney said, and we knew that not having that exemption in there would have drawn an enormous amount of resistance from particular faith communities that really would have put the bill in jeopardy. So again, the churches are ruling. So in heavily Catholic Pennsylvania, 40 bills have included changes in the mandatory child sex abuse reporting laws over the past 2 decades. None of them has challenged the clergy penitent privilege. That comes as no surprise to child sex abuse survivors and their advocates who have seen the Catholic Church and its lobbyists spend millions in the battle in Pennsylvania over a proposed 2-year legal window for survivors to file lawsuits against their alleged abusers. In other states, legislators said they didn't know the clergy had a way around reporting abuse. After learning of the loophole from the AP, Vermont State Sen. Richard Sears, a Democrat, said that he would introduce a bill in the next legislative session to try to close it. I wasn't even aware it existed, Sears said. In 2003, amid the uproar over the Catholic Church's sexual abuse scandals, several states added clergy to their child sex abuse reporting laws, often with the exception for clergy who learned about the child sex abuse during spiritual confessions. So that's what happened in New Mexico. With the privileges protected, the bill sailed easily through both houses and was even supported by the archdiocese. They even supported it because they allowed it. So since then, there have been several bills introduced in the New Mexico legislature aimed at clarifying language in the reporting law. Only one would have eliminated the clergy penitent privilege, and it died in the committee. We have repeatedly asked legislators to strengthen reporting requirements in schools, religious institutions, State Attorney General Hector Balderas told the AP. He said, unreported child abuse is a major problem resulting in a tremendous amount of trauma. So there you have it. That's the whole article. The AP is solely responsible for this article, for this content. The Associated Press, that's what that stands for. So the Associated Press religion coverage receives support through the AP's collaboration with Conversations US with funding from Lilly Endowment Inc. And the AP is solely responsible for this content, except where I ad-libbed a little bit. Okay, so I'm just gonna get off that there. We're back at the studio and we're gonna take a look at the live stream. So, any questions? That was a long article. It was a long article. I didn't realize what was going on in the US with how the Jehovah's Witnesses were getting away with these clergy loopholes. But it's huge, and there's a lot of money. The Catholic Church is very strong, and this is a big fight. So I want to carry on this article. I want to talk about what's happening in the Watchtower. And this, let's see if we can get this big screen here maybe. Yeah. So right now, if you went on to JW.org, you would see this right on the website. They're pumping out conspiracy theories. Why are they so dangerous, and how can you protect yourself from them? So this is how JW.org is doing damage control to their people. And we go to learn more. And we go through this article, and it just really talks about not trusting the news. So I just read you a bunch of news. If you're an elder, if you're out there, JW.org says, oh, don't trust that. It's news. And that's what they're saying here. They're saying, do not believe everything you hear or see. We can be deceived if we're not careful. Captions, images, briefs, videos are widely spread online through social media and such places. So JW.org is afraid. They are warning their people not to go online. That it's all, well, from Satan is what they're really saying. They're saying evaluate the reliability of the source. It says news media companies and other organizations may slant a story because of their commercial or political bias. You see? So this is how Jehovah's Witnesses, their news media, this is right off their website. This is what they're teaching their people, is not to trust the news. And that's how they're doing damage control right now. They're saying be guided. We tend to trust information that confirms what we want to believe. And the internet companies often customize news and social media feeds and offer us information based on our interests. So they're saying don't trust it. So stop the spread of it. They're saying remember the information you share with others. So they're saying don't share it. We say share it. We say share these videos with everyone because it's news. It's from the court documents. These are real. We're going to take a look at how JWs do news real quick here because of this article that they pumped out. So they talk about conspiracy theories. Are they dangerous, and why are they so popular? Now, the thing that you got to be careful here is the JW news is the ones that's twisted. Everything they're saying here is about themselves. The reason they're saying this is because they're trying to hide what's going on within their organization, what's going on and how their lawyers are fighting for clergy class in every single one of these bills. Every letter, they have to fight every letter now that's exposed, and they got to fight it for clergy class. They have clergy class. So this is what they're trying to do, JW.org, and we go to their website now. I want to show you what's on their website, Jehovah's Witnesses website. So if we plug in Catholic child abuse on Jehovah's Witness website right now, it's a long list. Now I'm going to use my side scroller and show you how long this list is. This is a long list. Like I said, there's all kinds of awakes. Watching the world, Catholic. Look at this. The Watchtower of 97. That's when I was in at full hilt. So much suffering. Catholic theologian, blah, blah, blah. Perplexes many. They go on about all the Catholic problems. So we're going to go all the way down. This is a big list of Catholics. All Catholic child abuse, like article. They've been writing articles for decades about the Catholics. For decades. Awake, watching the world, Catholic and Protestant traditions, blah, blah, blah. You know, just poking fingers at the Catholics. I just plugged in Catholics and child abuse. That's all I plugged in here. And watching the world, abuse, child prostitution, Christendom walks in the way of Canaan, childbearing years, abuse has led to misconceptions. Monique was 9 years old when he started abusing her. He began unspying her. This was talking about something, probably some Catholic, right? I plugged in Catholic. So it's all Catholic child abuse. That's what I plugged in. Lots of articles. The first one that comes up is the Catholic Church in Spain, the abuse of power. And so that's the very first one. And I was a Catholic nun as the second one. I read that article when I was a JW. I actually read that. And I was a Catholic nun. I told the awake. So here's some nun who turned Jehovah's Witness. So, of course, they're going to write a big article on that. and how we can protect our children. So they have a lot on child abuse and Catholics. So I went to the JW website, and can you see that up there? I don't know if you can see that, but I plugged in Jehovah's Witness child abuse. And I'm going to use the thing. Here's all there is. We're at the end of it. That's it. There's not much. Jehovah's Witness child abuse. So what it mainly covers is Jehovah's Witnesses' scripturally based position on child protection, and is your child abused? Child abuse, things you can do about it. The German state parliament commemorates Jehovah's Witnesses' courageous stand against Nazi abuse. See, now we're out of child abuse. There's no more child abuse. And then it goes on to Jehovah's Witnesses educate parents and children to protect against sexual predators. And then index subjects, love and justice, child custody, protect your family from drug abuse, child custody, and then child custody. So that's all they have. There is nothing on JW.org about their own problem in-house with child abuse. You see, they won't talk about their own problem, but yet I go over here and I plug in Catholic child abuse and the list goes on. I can't get to the bottom of the list. They talk on and on and on and on about all the other religions and their child abuse, but when I plug in Jehovah's Witness child abuse, nothing. Not one. So who's telling the rest of the story? Who's giving the Jehovah's Witness the correct news? Not the Jehovah's Witness newsroom. They're liars. They withhold the truth. They teach the people how to lie in court and call it theocratic warfare. So we know this is all nonsense. So we're going to move forward. I'm going to see if this, this is how the Catholic Church reckoned with sexual abuse. And I'll see if I'll run it on, no, we'll keep it on the other article. So the Vatican's response has, I'm not going to read this article. It's too much stuff. But how has the Catholic Church reckoned with sexual abuse claims? The Vatican's response has been slow and faltering. So even though the Pope gets up there and does his big apology, it's all legal, it's all lawsuits, and the Catholics have the most money, and they are fighting every state to keep the Vatican, the priests, to allow them to have this penitent privilege, this clergy privilege. And this is what Jehovah's Witnesses are banking on. So here it is, as many as 330,000 children were sexually abused by the clergy and lay members of the Catholic Church in France. This is only in France. And this is only between 1950 and 2020. A 2-year independent investigation published in recent days revealed the extents of the scandal. But France is not alone in facing up to the Church's history of abuse. Accusations against Catholic priests around the world have surged since the 1990s. Thousands of cases have emerged across dozens of countries, including America, Australia, Germany, Ireland, Mexico, the Philippines, and Poland. The Vatican's response has been erratic. The previous Pope Benedict initiated reforms but failed to act against bishops who covered up evidence of abuse by priests. And when Pope Francis was elected in 2013, he promised decisive action on the issue. And in 2018, he wrote to all Catholics condemning sexual abuse and acknowledged the Church's role in hiding these crimes. In June this year, the Vatican updated the canon law of the Church's legal system, which can be used to defrock a priest to explicitly criminalize the sexual abuse of adults as well as children, a change that took more than a decade to plan. But Pope Francis have made missteps too, because in 2018 he dismissed as slander accusation that a Chilean bishop, Joan Barros, was complicit in covering up abuse, a stance he later acknowledged and was a grave error. So, and last month, the Pope rejected the resignation of several German bishops who were found by the Church to have made serious mistakes in managing sexual abuse cases. So here you have one man, the Pope. He's not God. He's not an angel. He's no one special. He's just a man. He breathes like you and me. He bleeds the same. He's this man, and he's got to decide on all of these bishops, if they're bad or if they're good. You see, that can't be done. These guys all have to be put in front of lie detectors. They have to go down to the police station, and if they're guilty, they got to go to jail. And in jail, they got to let the criminals deal with them and forget about these guys in jail. They're slime. These priests that sexually abuse are slime, and they need to be thrown in jail along with the Jehovah's Witness elders that support this stuff, and it has to be dealt with. But it's not that easy with how our constitutions protect religion. And I think, folks, that has to change. I think that's going to change, and it changes only by us. We have a voice, and Be Free 2023 is the place to be, October 31st at the White House. And that's where we want to be in the U.S. We want to be fighting this. So now, religion's is in the headlines for cover-ups of abuse. I plugged this into the internet. I wanted to see what come up. I just made it basic, just religions. It says U.S. Christian groups accused of covering up. Illinois attorney finds mass cover-ups of clergy. Sex abuse in Catholic Church, over 1,900 minors abused in Illinois. Arizona court upholds clergy privilege in child abuse cases. Court hears closing argument in Brian Houston's case. This, among almost 1,700 priests and clergy accused of sex abuse, are unsupervised. That's what it says. Catholic Church child sex abuse scandal. The list goes on. I can keep going. It's even getting into Africa. Feature, ending child sexual abuse in Africa, hamstrung by religion, poverty. Zimbabwe. So this is huge, folks. This what's going up, the cover-up of abuse. So I think this is going to be the crumble of religion. That's my supposition. This is the downfall of religion, covering up child abuse, abusing children. And for any of us that feel for children, we're going to step outside of religion, and we're going to be an apostate against religion. Period. It's all the same. Now, I plugged in Jehovah's Witnesses abuse cover-ups just to see what would come up. You plug it in on your internet. Right away, it comes up with a cover-up allegation, like a whole explanation on Google. Since 2000, here's what it says. In some cases, members of Jehovah's Witnesses have been prevented or deterred from reporting child molestation to civil authorities. Particularly since around 2000, the Jehovah's Witness organization has been accused of covering up cases of child molestation committed by its members. This is right Wikipedia. This is mainstream. The Jehovah's Witnesses are as bad as the rest. And I would not want to be a Jehovah's Witness today. Looking at the news, you see, you go onto JW.org, and they, what are they saying? Here's what they're telling you. It's a conspiracy theory. Don't believe any of this stuff. That's what JW.org is telling you. But it's real, folks. This is real. So here's the last part of the program. The last part of the program here, we've ran a little bit over time, but that's fine. This is important news. But the last part of the program is for all of you out there that are in the organization, your elders. If you're PMO and you're working both ends of the fence, good on you. You're helping a lot of us on the outside that can speak. But if you're an elder, here's my advice. You have the power within you. The governing body has taken the power away from you, but you have the power within you. And that's what the Bible says. I just went to the Bible tool and plugged in power. My wife and I had this discussion this morning. 2 Timothy 1:7, for God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. So if you're in a position of oversight in the Jehovah's Witness religion, get out. God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. You don't have to get angry at anybody. Just leave. Get out. Now the next scripture I'm going to read is Isaiah 40:29-31. And it says, he gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases their strength. So for those of us out there that are feeling weak and we don't have the power, I don't know if I could go to that Be Free thing. I don't know if I have the power. Well, even youths shall faint and be weary, and the young man shall fall exhausted. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. And they shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. So all it says you have to do is rely on Jesus, rely on the Lord, God, and he will give you the power. So if you're an elder in there, rely on Jehovah. Say a prayer to Jehovah. Jehovah, the God of the universe, the highest figure in the universe, does not support covering up child crimes. So you know that's wrong. So 1 Corinthians 6 and 14, I think this is the last scripture. It says, and God raised the Lord and will also raise us by his power. So the power is not from the governing body. The power comes to us from God, through Christ, through the Holy Spirit, however it works. This program today, the power was given to me from someone else. I didn't get this myself. It came to us from one of the subscribers, this news today. So that's the power. You guys have the power. And you read this stuff, it's online, there's articles out there. We can puppet this, and we can help as creators. There's a lot of us out there, so we can help to get the message out. So I think that brings an end to the program today. I want to thank everyone for being online and for having a share in the program. We have Sherry online and Lord Majestic and Tammy G. GG4B, hi Gilbert, nice to see you out there. Now, if anybody doesn't know, I think everyone does, but Gilbert's been on topic on a lot of these subjects here too lately on his channel. And yeah, so thanks everyone for sticking with us on this news broadcast. And I hope it's a dark subject, these subjects. I've been kind of tackling this a little bit hard lately. This problem with in the news, but I didn't realize that the priests and that are really protected. They're really relying on this clergy penitent privilege. And I guess I didn't realize that the Jehovah's Witnesses lawyers were really making the elders into clergy. They're trying to. But Montana, they're winning. So even though they have this privilege, the Montana court is going through it and going through every piece of paper, and they're not allowing them to get away with it. And I think that's a thumbs up. That's a win. And I think the courts, maybe the Catholic Church has a lot of money, a lot of power. And maybe that's why the court in Pennsylvania is going really hard after the Jehovah's Witness. Maybe once they nail that first religion and they abolish this clergy penitent privilege that they're hiding behind to protect pedophiles, once they get the JWs, they get them all. And all it takes is one state. And then once one state learns how to get this passed, then it's a domino effect. And it's happening all over the world, like here in Canada. I don't believe and I'm going to do some more research on this, but I don't believe in Canada a Catholic priest can hide behind that clergy penitent privilege. I don't think they can in Norway. We'll do some more research. This is a huge thing right now in the U.S. It's being fought in the U.S. And so we're here to support you guys as the audience all over the world. This is big news for us all. So here we go. Here's the end of our program. Thank you again, folks. And thank you for being online with us tonight. So here is our conclusion.